Is the Russian Ministry of Defense and power brokers in the Kremlin finally hinting at an end to the war? What would it look like? And who is angry about it? Basically everybody. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's April 22nd, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. Okay, first we'll take a look at the control map. There actually hasn't been any update since our last check, but what I did notice is that they're listing as a minor frontline update, but it's actually Ukrainian forces, again, taking back a relatively small, not especially important piece of territory, just along this roadway here, south of Marinka, right along this sort of, I guess, roadway leading into Donetsk, right in the border between what looks like Luhansk province and is it Luhansk? Everything's so fucking crazy here. I think it's Donetsk province and Zaporizhzhia, right? But you can see this sort of boundary line here, which also denotes some of the what Russia claims are administrative boundaries in its annexed territory. So an interesting little change again to the front line, probably just a correction, not any territory of a special value, but an interesting note in change in the front lines. When we look at the combat map, you can see the Ukrainian military giving us an exact number. Thank you. 53 attacks. And you could see, again, pretty standard stuff. Russia, interestingly, continuing to launch attacks in Volodar, as well as their efforts to encircle Avdiivka, flank Bakhmut, take more more blocks within Bakhmut, et cetera, et cetera. Here's where things get interesting. Okay. When we look at the internal politicking of Russia, which continually gets just stranger and stranger by the day. The Angry Patriots Club. You may remember this was an organization founded by Igor Girkin, a mill blogger who had been a commander in the 2014 separatist movement in the Donbas region, and also was allegedly an FSB operative for decades before that. He has directly positioned himself against Prigozhin, head of the Wagner Group, because Prigozhin has publicly floated that he supports an effort to freeze the war in Ukraine, i.e. transition to defensive operations for months, holding the territory that Russia currently has and attempting to grow the military and grow Russia's capabilities before it returns to offensive operations. This is we're talking about a year plus. And it's very interesting because, again, the Angry Patriots Club manifesto posed these 40 direct questions to the Kremlin, Putin, and Russian military command. Girkin asks why Russian authorities have not arrested Prigozhin for his direct calls to freeze the war at the current front lines, which Girkin characterized as calls to violate the integrity of the Russian Federation. Because as you guys know, Russia technically annexed not just the occupied territories, but in fact the entire oblasts. So they don't currently control what they claim is Russian sovereign territory. It's, again, sort of a testament to the preposterousness of this Russian legal fig leaf that they are constructing. Right? Girkin Girkin rhetorically asked who was responsible for the withdrawal from Kherson, since it was overseen by a Wagner-affiliated Russian armed forces commander. And generally, this just adds fuel to the fire of a Girkin-Prigozhin feud, probably because it describes them as a competition for patronage, which may be the case. I actually argue that it's a little bit of a competition for patronage and also a competition for power base, since they are both Russian ultranationalists. They want to clearly distinguish their camps as to who's out-nationalist each other in an effort to have the largest following and sense of not just patronage, which is someone from the top supporting you as a subordinate, but to have a power base, which are people at the bottom who support you. And they think that the reason ISW speculates that Prigozhin is being attacked is that somehow Prigozhin has aligned himself again with the Russian Ministry of Defense, who it argues also wants a temporary freeze of the war in Ukraine. Oh, just this is why I can't have nice things. I just close out everything right and left here. There we go. But it's really, really interesting to see, right, that the Russian MOD of all people wants to see the lines frozen in place. And as the Russian MOD and Wagner are right, trying to put contracted servicemen to defend already occupied positions. Russian propagandists are preparing to hopefully be able to announce that they're going to spin a less successful Ukrainian counteroffensive as a major Russian victory. And that the forecast said Russia would freeze the war for 2024, so the coming year, for political reasons, such as the presidential elections, if Russia is successful in repelling Ukrainian counteroffensives. And it's just a really interesting admission by several major actors that there may be options in which the war, they're calling it a freeze, but it almost certainly will become a de facto static line. This is what happened in the Donbass, where for the better part of 6 years, the battle lines never really changed. And I think, again, if I were a betting man, when people ask me, how do you think this war will end? That's what I tell them. I think it will end in a stalemate. Unless this Ukrainian counteroffensive proves incredibly successful at pushing Russians back to the border, the ability of Russia to pivot to the defensive, to generate manpower, to accept casualties is really, really outstanding, really exceptional in any country. And so it's surprising to me. It would surprise me if Russia was not willing to consider simply turning their occupied territories into a fortress that Ukraine would have to work tirelessly over years to heal the Russians out of. Anyway, guys, as always, you guys know I had dropped another combat video, immediately got it demonetized. Just a reminder that YouTube really plays by its own set of rules. That's why I have my own site, combatvetnews.com. It's got all the Ukraine news that I can't get to for free. It's got all my YouTube videos on there for free. And if you want to support me, make a huge difference, really to enable me to do what I do, you please do. It's my Patreon alternative. And when you become a member, not only do you get the shout outs at the end of videos, but you get access to all the uncensored combat videos. As you can see, we just dropped this video, which is the craziest GoPro footage I have ever seen of combat, full stop, no exceptions. This is like watching the GoPro of someone who, if he were in the US military, would probably get a silver star for valor. Probably would get a silver star for valor, honestly. This is looks like a squad leader, team leader who takes charge of and repels a Russian attack single-handedly at first, and then takes charge of what looks like a fire team and leads them in repelling a Russian attack. It's wild. So anyway, thanks to all of the members from Combat Vet News that support what I do, especially our Colonel tier members. I couldn't do it without you guys. Thanks to all of our Lieutenant tier members, and I'll see you guys in the next one.